Welcome to this series of ongoing artist talks, which have been hosted by Leeds Art Gallery and supported by the School of Art, Architecture and Design. This week we're really excited to have Mikhail Karakis. I'm just pronouncing it. Practicing pronouncing your surname, which sounds like Caracas, but not, with a kiss, anyway. Just to give you a little bit of background information about Mikhail. Mikhail is an artist based in London. His work embraces moving image, sound, and other media to create immersive audiovisual installations and performances. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to see fantastic work upstairs. If you haven't, or if you have, visit again. I think it's really amazing.
Downstairs.
Downstairs.
It's like it's confusing the gallery. Upstairs, downstairs.
Downstairs. I think an aspect of Mikhail's practice that I'm really interested in is his kind of collaborations with communities, and I think, out of those collaborations, I think can come some, really meaningful, interesting projects, hopefully that we'll maybe explore today in conversation. He has an incredible international profile, just looking at his CV here. So he's this year already, he's been in the Thessaloniki Biennale, the Biennale in Sydney last year, the Media City Biennale in Seoul. I saw a brilliant work in Manifesta in Ghent in 2012, the Danish Pavilion, the Venice Biennale, it goes on and on. But anyway, enough of me. Mikhail, thank you.
Four. Speak to me. few words from a woman. Without a look, me, though we will for be for we do we don't for we see me a few forcing me to give me to sing to be few words tonight to me. Words to the truth. Have you to me? To sing. The first time I cough, I'm clearing my throat. The second time I cough, I'm getting ready to speak. I cough again. Perhaps I'm asking you to be quiet. How did this transition of addressee happen? How did the same sound, which was first about me, begin to be about you? The fourth time I cough, perhaps I'm buying time. I'm nervous, I have stage fright. I cough again, and you become suspicious. Something is not quite right. Something is not quite the same. You seem nervous or uncomfortable. You seem embarrassed. Some of you smile, you smirk, you move in your seats, you hide a laugh. Are you embarrassed? What is the cause of this embarrassment? Is it because my position here at the front, alone and exposed, and you there, sitting among the audience, makes you have an expectation that I deliver an articulate speech, which I failed to deliver? In that sense, does our appointment become a disappointment? Is the embarrassment caused by some kind of shared fear of losing our ability to speak? Or perhaps by the fact that failing to speak, speaking nonsense, failing to control our speech or talking gibberish is a sign of losing our mind or our respectability? Have I suddenly lost it? Am I ridiculous? No matter the reason, I think that breaking up speech opens up, at least momentarily, the possibility for meaning to be improvised, reinvented, reimagined, and rediscovered. That's nonsense. The gay American composer and thinker John Cage said that syntax, which is the set of rules that govern and organize language, is the army of language. Coming from ancient Greek, the word syntax means to put in order and is still used as a military term in contemporary modern Greek. Then, if syntax is the army of language, then does nonsense, which breaks syntax, it breaks the order of language and subverts it, does it suggest a kind of demilitarization of language? What is the potential of nonsense in that sense as a pacifist, sonic, auditory force? I tend to think of nonsense as something that occupies the position of an outsider. It's a rebel or a deserter in relation to language and its rules. This infuses nonsense with a kind of political power. But can nonsense be specific? What exactly is its political power? The work that we just watched is, we haven't watched it in its entirety. It's called Sounds from Beneath. And I'm going to read you some reflections I've had. Rich in its industrial history from the time when coal played a primary role in British life, fueling domestic fires and industrial furnaces, and stimulating the socio-political and cultural life of the country, from unions to choirs, the Kentish landscape is marked by the radical urban, social and economic changes that have taken place in Britain since the mid-1980s. Lush green hills are punctuated by barren and disused collieries, vast shopping malls, former mining villages and their alienated, regenerated versions. Kent was a place of intense coal mining activity, so was Yorkshire, where local and migrant miners and their families lived, worked and partook in the cultural and political life that characterized the mining community. But since the dismantling of the coal mining industry in England in the 1980s, the Kentish coal mines have stood silent. Despite the striking muteness of the empty pits, what is still audible through the spoken memories of old ex-miners is the generational passage of song and story in the vivid language of the miners, which has kept account of the history and tradition, giving voice where official narratives and histories have denied it. Traces of such sounds and memories can still be heard in some village pubs and mining welfare clubs and choirs, where former colliers are socialised and sing. But what sounds are specific to this community, and how are they to be remembered? Are official language and ceremony adequate memory keepers of the miners, their achievements, resistance and culture? In 2010, at the back of Snowdown Colliery Welfare Club in Kent, I discovered a choir of elderly former miners, the ones used in the film, who regularly rehearse in a large barrel-shaped dance hall, a repertoire that ranges from miners' anthems to Broadway songs. The former singing of past strength and the miners' hardships, the latter offering light, sentimental entertainment. This vast gap in content and sentiment in the choir's repertoire was a signifier, for me at least, of the alienation and abrupt interruption of the miners' choral tradition, which was entwined with the workplace and the union. Sung outside the work context and recounting past narratives, the choir's minor songs are heard like dusty historical records, temporarily disconnected from the present. Beyond the choir's mining songs, however, the work of the collier was itself sonorous, and this is what I tried to explore in this piece. As was the working mine in its powerful soundscape of excavating the earth. From the rumble of the subterranean explosions to the scratching of shovels, each part of the coal mining process was sonically distinct, making sound practice the byproduct of the miner's labour. The soundscape of the mine formed a profession-specific noise composition, to my ears at least, which followed the rhythms of the working day. Its noise connected the miner's labour with the site of their work and produced an aural signifier of the mining community, their identity and their profession. So for this piece, Sounds from Beneath, I collaborated with Snowdown Colliery Choir and asked them to recall and vocalise the sounds they used to hear when they worked in the mines. So These sounds range from subterranean explosions to the sounds of shovels, as I explained, to lifts, water sprays, drills, alarms, and so on and so forth. Detached from their original source and emanating from the aging bodies of the miners on the colliery, these noises re-establish a connection between the labour of mining and the body, sight and memory, humans and machines. So I spent about 7 months going there on a weekly basis for one day. And whilst they were rehearsing, of course I didn't interrupt. At the end of the rehearsal, usually I'd have a conversation with them, and I asked them about the different kind of technologies they used when they worked in the mines, and the sounds as they remembered them, the sounds of the mine as they remembered them. And then throughout a period of these 7 months, I created a kind of sonic archive of these sounds, which then I made a kind of composition with. Throughout that time, I was also on some trips in Kent, trying to locate whether there are any mines left that I could actually access. And the film is shot on Tilmonston Colliery, which is one of the, well, actually it's the only one that I could get permission to go to, because there's no equipment left there, and the whole mine is sunken. So it was not hazardous to visit. And to my surprise, a lot of these men that I was working with actually used to work in Tilmonston Colliery. So the idea then was to stage a performance of this sound work on the mine. And I collaborated for the film. I collaborated with an artist called Uriel Orlo, who helped me film this. The song presents the men with a reason to come together again and transform the desolate site into an amphitheatre of communal remembering, forming a subjective and site-specific record of former activity and community. But these are not sounds as they used to resound across the mine in the past. They are oral recollections as they exist in the embodied present, marked by the texture of the half-remembered and of time passing. The miners excavate a suppressed memory of loss and compose a recollective lament outside the confines of language, both resisting social inaudibility and resonating beyond the silence of vanished industrial architectures. Now I'd like you to focus on something else, which is sound, again. I'd like you to tell me what it is that you hear, apart from the environmental sound of water. Any ideas? Yeah?
Is it wind?
Okay, wind. Any other ideas? Sorry?
Children?
Children, sorry, what did you say? A waterfall. Waterfall, children, wind,
Birds, it sounds like.
birds,
Yeah.
I heard a cat.
a cat. Paddling pool. Yeah. Can you hear the, yeah, whistling? What was that? People do what? Say that again? Whistling. Okay. So we had cats, birds, whistling, children, people, wind, waterfall. Oh, that should not be up there. Anyway, you can see it. I don't know why it's there. Anyway. Driving along the rocky island of Jeju, a small patch of black volcanic land, which belongs to South Korea and floats in the North Pacific between China and Japan, I heard an extraordinary series of sounds wafting out from the sea. Interwoven high-pitched whistles resembling bird calls or perhaps dolphins or seal noises. The sounds were coming from the horizon, where a small pod of black animated dots moved in and out of the water. As I swam closer, I realized I was observing humans, and that I had been misled into thinking they were seals by the black rubber wetsuits they wore. Their ambiguous creature-like sounds were coupled with a gender ambiguity created by the uniform diving suits and masks. As they reached the coast, their weathered female facial features were revealed, and their limited terrestrial agility became apparent as they emerged clumsily out of the water, carrying heavy baskets loaded with shells. Who were these divers? Why were they only women? Why were they all so old? Why were such extraordinary sonorities produced? And what was their purpose? Any guesses?
Pearls or sponges?
Sorry?
Pearls or sponges?
Pearls
Or sponges.
or sponges, yeah. Operating outside the currents of modernization, the Haenyeo, literally meaning sea women, are an ancient and a fast-vanishing community that now consists predominantly of 50 to 90-year-old women who dive to depths of up to 20 meters. I'm not sure if you can do meters, but that's probably about 8 or 10. So it's twice as deep as this. Without oxygen supply, to catch seafood, collect seaweed, and find pearls. This is a gendered profession practiced only by females. The limited research that exists on the subject and interviews I conducted suggest several reasons for this. Men usually like to say that there is a kind of physiological explanation behind it, which is the distribution of fat in women's bodies, which insulates them against the cold and allows them to stay in the sea for as long as 8 hours, even during the coldest months of winter. Dr. Anne Hilty identifies a cultural reason to be the Korean attitude toward exposing the flesh and nudity, which was and still is considered to be degrading and was reserved for poor women of low social status. Before the introduction of the rubber suit, the wetsuit, the Haenyeo worked half naked, covering only their genitals with white cloth. Thus, the Haenyeo profession was, and to a large extent still is, a social stigma. A social-political factor which contributed to the growth of this women-only profession, paradoxically, is the sexism in Confucian law, which until the beginning of last century did not recognize female labor. I mean, we experienced this in the West as well. A lot of women who stayed home to bring up children or just, do domestic work, but just do it as a hobby. It's not work, and they should not be paid or get any pension. So this very old-fashioned sexist law excluded the henyo from taxation. Thus, the diving women engaged in a low-status profession worked against the will of the state, including during the Japanese imperial rule in the 30s and 40s, but brought their entire income back home. Henyo told me they may dive up to 80 times a day. That means going up and down 80 times a day. Each dive lasts up to 2 minutes and is punctuated by a combination of sounds, including a high-pitched, breathy whistle or shriek, grunts and sudden wheezing inhalations and exhalations. These are arguably spontaneous, non-verbal vocal gestures bursting out of the mouth, which one might mistake for sea mammals or bird calls. The diving women make a living by constantly negotiating the limits of that which sustains them, their breath. At once alarming and joyous, their sounds form the edge of an auditory blade that marks the horizon between life and death. But the henyo are not silly, because they come prepared. They are equipped with a sumbisori, an ancient breathing technique which has been practiced for centuries and passed on from one generation of women to the next, when new girls, in the past, they used to start diving at the age of 8. What I created after quite a long residency on the island is an audiovisual installation called Sea Women, which consists of a 12 speaker sound installation and a video, where we see and hear this kind of last generation of sea women. And we are surrounded by these extraordinary sounds, as well as sounds of work songs, the entire sonic subculture, which for various reasons it has remained a subculture. The sumbisori, with its aural production, is a work skill. So here, now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the way I understand the sounds they produce and what actually are they culturally, in cultural terms. So my first reading is of this aural production as a work skill. It's a specific craft which a young henyo learns as a young girl and must perfect throughout her life. Practiced only by women and passed on from mother to daughter, this is a gender-specific vocal skill that is transgenerationally transmitted, creating an intergenerational aural bond that connects the community and functions as a sonic signifier of professional identity. Certain sumbisori sounds occupy high frequencies above the noise of the sea and are easily identifiable acoustically. The henyo hear them above water, the sound of the water, even when their visibility is restricted due to the accumulated condensation on the masks. Something that actually, I'm not going to show you the film, it's quite long. We observe in the film as well. Therefore, when at work in the sea, the sounds of the henyo could be said to function as an aural signal and acoustic location marker that keeps each diver within hearing distance and close to the rest of the group. Also to the trained ear, each sumbisori has a distinctive sound and is thus a unique acoustic signature that is produced in the individual mouth and body of each woman. What I mean to say, this is a rather academic way of putting it, is that they can identify in the water whose sound is where. So if there is an accident or if there's a kind of emergency, they can tell who is in danger and in what direction to swim. But there is something else. The subtlety of the word Sumbisori reveals a further layer of meaning. As I was told in an interview with a Jeju Hanyu researcher, Dr. Cha Haekyeon, the word Sumbisori, literally translated as breath sound, it also has another meaning. It means to overcome. But overcome what? She explains that the Hanyu community led the anti-Japanese resistance movement in the 40s on the island and witnessed a large loss of the male population after the fall of the Japanese rule, when American and South Korean forces massacred those suspected of supporting the reunification with North Korea. For those who are not very familiar with the politics in that region, basically I would encourage you to kind of read about it. In broad terms, the conflict, the kind of Cold War between the US and Russia was played out, as most of you know, in Korea, with the north part of Korea becoming part of the Soviet Union, and South Korea becoming dominated by America, the US. And you can see that today. I mean, if you go to big cities in Korea, they look like LA. And people are, I mean, you really see this kind of consumerist culture, westernized consumerist culture is very present. This is just a very small fragment of what's happening there. There are American bases, there are a lot of other things. So in this light, the sounds of the Sumbisori become charged with the expression of trauma of the massacre and the working through of suffering. Their sonority is transformed into a complex cultural sound object that is the product of a subculture operating within a particular political, geographical, and historical specificity. The Sumbisori is impregnated with a potential to operate as a local marker of a historical event and the non-verbal transmitter of memory, resistance, and of rising above difficult circumstances, which to an extent I think that I was instinctively working on also in Sound from Beneath, the previous film we saw. However, as each inhalation is followed by an exhalation, I think that the work practiced by the Hanyu is in a state of perpetual incompletion, a dual movement of possession and dispossession, of a within and a without. This is being negotiating a vacuum, becoming filled and becoming empty. This is what the sound of the Sumbisori suggests, becoming full of oxygen and life, and letting go of life. Like being pregnant and giving birth, holding the mysteries of labour and life-bearing. In the end, in my search to find the meaning of the sounds of the diving grandmothers of Jeju, I heard a rebellious sound that operates beyond the rules of language and is created outside the mainstream of modernization and economism. I heard an ancient craft and a transgenerational bond, a cultural sound object and a transmitter of memory and resistance. I heard an acoustic signature of a community and of a professional identity, its fun and purpose. The sounds of the sea women are a sonic composition of the common. And for those who have seen the work that I've got here called Children of Unquiet, which is on the ground floor, it's not upstairs or downstairs, it's on the ground floor, which is the work that followed. I decided not to show you that work and talk about that piece. We can talk about it if you've seen it in the conversation after the talk. But I'm talking to you about the two works that I created just before Children of Unquiet. And in my last sentences, I'm introducing some of the themes that I worked through in Children of Unquiet. So the sounds of sea women are a sonic composition of the common, a sonic composition of a self-organized transvocal democracy. There are certain things that I haven't talked about, which are apparent in the film, which shows the women in the they call them work camps. They sound terrifying. They're not terrifying, but because they dive, they need to have a base by the sea, where they cook and congregate and change and bathe and all that. And it's a very noisy place, and there's a lot of debating going on, which is completely self-organized. It really, kind of experiencing that, it was really enlightening to see how, without having any formal structure, how voices can actually negotiate their dynamics and begin, even in larger groups, to have debates, democratic kind of elections between them, and so on. That's what we hear before we even begin to enter the semantic level of their vocal exchanges and the actual meanings of each word they utter. I think that this sound, it might not be language, but it is politics. Thank you very much.
I think we have time for a few questions. Anyone?
Is it quarter past? I can't see the time.
No, it's 5 to nearly 10 to
5 to 7?
Yeah,
Okay.
5 to 7. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, just at the back.
Was there any artists in particular that were influential to your kind of ideas for your works?
Too many to talk about. I only mentioned Joe Cage there, but I think influential, it depends, because I think I'm influenced in terms of visuals by different artists, and in terms of sound by different artists. I need to think. You know, I have a lot of friends, actually, contemporary artists whose work I find really inspiring. So Harold's work, I think, is really inspiring. Orit Asheri's work, whom I've worked with several times. So Orit Asheri, I think her work is extraordinary. Sounds from Beneath the video was created with another artist that I really respect. His name is Uriel Orlo. So these are contemporary artists. I don't know, am I supposed to mention any historical figures? Maybe you can see some influences that I can't see in my work. I don't know. Can you?
Well, yeah, I can see some aspects of like we've been doing a lot of viewing of films and things like that with one of our students, and I just thought that the attention to detail with sound and things like that was a lot more key in the visuals that you have shown us.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the films which we've been watching, like Ashia, Andalou, and things like that, like Salvador Dali, it was more about the visual.
Mm-hmm.
But I just found it interesting that with you, it was about the sounds, and that for me is like very key parts to like film and videos and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was very interesting.
I mean, also like popular culture has been very important to me, because very often, you know, looking at kind of art house cinema, usually, or films, usually the visual aspect of a film comes first, and then people just add the sound on top of it.
Yeah.
Whereas, because the sonic concept of my works in general is so key to the way I think about my work, actually, usually I compose the sound first, or I work on the sound first, and then the sound, the visuals come later. So I edit, a bit like a music video, so I edit image to sound. I mean, the work I'm showing here, there's a lot more attention to the visual. Have you seen this work, Children of Quiet?
No, I'm not too sure.
Okay. Okay, well, you know, you can get my email, and if you see it and you have other things to talk about, we can communicate about that. Yes?
Well, yeah, I can see a link in the works of the miners, Kent miners, and children.
Yeah.
People in Italy. Is one of your chief objectives democratic and revolutionary? Put people off, people in struggle? Because the miners, I mean, I remember in the 80s, I heard a miner from Feathershanger speaking in Wigan, Alex Gardner was there. He was saying that the Nottinghamshire miners work in Cumberland mines, and that was where there was a counter-union to the main union was established. And the pits, you could actually walk upright in the pits. Whereas in the Kent mines, they were working, it seems, in heights of 2 to 3 feet. And the miner actually said at part of his speech, he said, down the pit, we're on our knees. The Nottinghamshire miners down the pit are standing. But when we come to the surface, we're standing and they're on their knees. And I was just thinking in that context, because in a sense the geothermal installation in Italy is actually a forward-looking thing, and I noticed you were talking about love and that essence. But unfortunately, because of economics, that installation was closed and the village died. But I did want to ask you about what the relevance was of the love orchid and the contrast you seem to make with the bees. I'm from Manchester, and the symbol of our city is the bee.
Yes, it also connects with Marx and his bees. Okay, for those who have not seen the film, Children of Quiet, I'm going to maybe say a couple of things about that sequence in the film. So the film is created in Italy, in the geothermal region, in the place where the first geothermal power plant in the world was built. Geothermal meaning that heat and steam, high pressure steam coming from the earth is used and to generate electricity. So it's a sustainable form of creating energy. But since the late 70s and 80s, the power plant became automated, and as a result, 5,000 people lost their jobs, the villages became abandoned, and what I orchestrate in a way in the film is a children's takeover of one of the abandoned villages, and the children are children of people who used to work there. So, and this takeover happens in different ways, some more subtle than others. In the middle of so there are 3 chapters in the film. The middle chapter features the children being in different parts of the village reading, and they read sections of a book called Commonwealth by Antonio Negri and Michael Hard, which was written in 2011 maybe, and they reference Marx and Deleuze and Guattari in that film. And they talk in a kind of simple way. They talk about the productivity and industriousness of bees. Marx talks about this kind of union between bees and plants. So bees are the model, and ants, they are the models they're kind of models of the perfect worker. And there's this kind of collaboration with nature, with flowers, so that the bees are fed and the flowers are pollinated, which, according to Negri, and I believe that as well, it belongs to a kind of a slightly old-fashioned model of industrial production. But things have changed. So most of us are involved in immaterial production rather than material production. We may be working all day, but there's nothing to show for it at the end of the day. So then you contrast that, which is more connected or kind of parallel with what he suggests with wasps and what wasps do. So they don't produce honey, and there is this funny thing that nature does, a kind of trick, that there are certain orchids that produce the hormones, or they smell like female wasps. So male wasps, they, so to speak, fall in love with them and they copulate with them, but there is no offspring. The flowers benefit from it because they're pollinated, but there's no benefit for the wasps apart from pleasure. So they talk about this kind of immaterial production. So how can we think? So they talk about this kind of a different model of love in relation to productivity. So Antonio Negri talks. I'm trying to summarize a whole book in a few sentences. Antonio Negri suggests that we have to look at the dynamics of love to figure out a new model of economy and capitalism. I'm going to try to explain that. So love for him is both conservative as well as revolutionary, and I'll explain how. We may love people posthumously. We fall in love with someone, they die, but our feelings for them resist change. We can't accept that things have changed, that this person is no longer there, doesn't love us, or is dead. So there's something highly conservative about love, that it doesn't like change very much. And it creates sustainable bonds between people, between communities, between people. But at the same time, love is revolutionary. Think of Achilles and Patroclus, or think of Romeo and Juliet. It kind of transgresses rules. So they talk about these two contradictory dynamics in love. How at the same time that it's conservative and it creates sustainable bonds that last a long time, it also encourages change and it instigates revolution. So how can we think of that? How can we take that as a model to create institutions that are meant to create sustainable bonds between governments and people, between industries and workers? So how can we think of those institutions, those systems, as systems that are both able to sustain relationships and create bonds between people and industries and governments, but at the same time accommodate change? So this is the main question of the work. I'm not sure if anybody understood what I said, but I hope you kind of understand a bit more what I'm trying to do in that work. So in Children Are Quiet, basically I feel that what was missing from that place and what is still missing from that place is love. Or in inverted commas, love. So at the beginning, there was this kind of perfect collaboration between the industry and the people who worked there. So the people made it happen. And there was a kind of collaboration between Earth, the dynamics of the Earth, the kind of this power, the industry and the people to create this kind of sustainable cycle of energy production and people having, you know, kind of prosperous lives. But with the process of automation, this something where it started becoming kind of going wrong. Something really started going wrong, which is the fact that there was change for the industry, but they were unable to function as this institution or as something that could sustain the bonds between the local community and the industry. And I think it's up to the kind of next generation, new generation, to find a solution to this. How can that local industry and then re-establish a connection, taking into account all the changes that have taken place in the meantime? Sorry, I'm very animated as I try to explain, but I hope you kind of understand. Yes, please.
I'm quite interested in the process. So you obviously have this theory that you were working with, and you have this incredible sense of place, which I think you conveyed really well in the film, like the sound. And
Sense of
the
place.
way, yes, the sense of place really came across very strongly, I think. So I'm interested how you work with the kids. Did you work with them like you worked with the minors?
I never had a formula. I think there is a sense of place, but there's also kind of sensitivity toward the people that I'm working with. And I never had like a custom-made thing that I kind of bring to a community. I'm always trying to figure a way to be with others and also to figure out what it is that they want out of the kind of work, out of the collaboration. So with the children, it started with a very small incident. When I was walking in one of the abandoned villages, on the outskirts of it, I saw a small child who was about 7 years old and his mum. You're going to find this really silly. I mean, like really a non-event, really non-significant, but it was pivotal for the project. So this little boy, Italian boy, he saw me, he said ciao, and he started talking to me in Italian. He tried to make contact, and I went closer. My Italian is not very good, and his mum just dragged him away. And it's a very simple realization, but it kind of occupied me throughout the night when I couldn't sleep because of the noise of the factory. I kind of thought, actually, what our children want is very different from what we want for them. So in a way, that was the beginning of the project. So what I did, I contacted the local council, and I asked them to have to arrange a consultation with some of the parents in that area. And I asked parents how they see the future of their children. And with no exception, everybody sees the future of their own child away from that area. Because they say there's nothing for them to do there. And this is a very specific narrative that is very convenient for the local council and for the industry, because it means they don't have to invest in building these relationships or retraining people and all that. It's very convenient, and also they can completely demolish the beautiful infrastructure and do something else with it. So I thought, well, if this is what you want for your children, what do they want for themselves? So then I organized, of course it took months, but I organized a series of workshops for children, asking that question: how do you imagine your future in this place? And that ranged from doing drawing workshops, so we went on tour to, we walked through these villages, and then they selected certain buildings, and they drew the way they imagined them in the future. It was through storytelling and kind of writing different narratives of how they imagined the future of that place, and it was really amazing. Because at the beginning, when we went there on the school bus, it was only one child that said that she wanted to stay there. By the end of the whole project, and after seeing the film, all of them said they wanted to stay there. They kind of see the potential. And I'm not saying they're going to stick to that. I'm not saying that my project really changed their lives. No. But what I think the project did, it opened up, even for a short period of time, the possibility for them to imagine for themselves a possibility of change or a kind of different future for themselves, rather than just basically re-narrate the narrative that they are told about their own futures.
I think we'll have to stop there. Thank you. I know there's many more questions kind of growing, but thank you very much.
Thank you.